Hey, everybody out there. Thanks for joining me. This is Tim Laskus, and yes, you're listening to The Tim Laskus Show. This is episode 96 with Bethanie, Nonani. Now, Bethanie helps businesses reach their customers, tell their stories, and use growth techniques and technology to increase their revenue. Now, she knows about that, and she knows how to take your business to the next level. And it was really powerful what she said during this interview. She said you have 3 to 5 seconds to capture potential customers, because that's about their attention span. And if you miss it, you miss that opportunity, you're done. You've lost them forever. So anyway, you're going to enjoy this episode. So sit back and relax and enjoy.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests, entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. So we were just talking briefly about, this whole hurricane coming through Florida, and you survived and had to get out of Dodge. But, when the weather's nice down in Florida, what are you doing outside aside from business?
We love the beach. I love being close to the water. Little chicken because I don't like sharks and things like that, and I want to make sure my kids are safe. But just being at the beach all day, there's just nothing better.
Hey, I'm with you. I love the beach, but you can always use the sharks to threaten your kids. Like, you act up one more time, I'm taking you to the beach and throw you in the water. The sharks are hungry.
I absolutely could do that.
Yeah. Hey, don't blame me if it goes bad. Come back on. I don't need that. No, don't do it. No, anyway, Bethanie, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself professionally and what are you currently working on?
I have been in technology since literally I got out of high school. I started in middle school with computers that did not have a mouse or Windows, so a long, long time ago. But I was lucky that I ended up in this field because it is one of those fields that will never get old, always changes, and I love to learn. So it is perfect for me. Right now I am actually working with customers to help them that run small businesses, medium-sized businesses, to help them understand what can they do to really grow and scale their business. So many times we go into business because we're a master of something, or we can expertly execute something, and it's enough that we can start a business from it. But at some point, you get to a point that you run out of hours in the day and your to-do list continues to grow and you never get anything done. So using technology, using systems, automation, processors, all these different things to automate as much as you can so you can really scale your business and not lose your whole life to building your business and growing your business.
Got you. What's been a couple of the common mistakes that people are making? They think that they're growing their business, but maybe they're not. Do you see that?
Yeah, so it's really common for people to not understand how important your website may be and not understand how the way people buy has changed. So 10 years ago, we would search for a dog trainer, and we would get results back that we'd have to kind of farm through and find the right person. But today, consumers buy smarter. So they might look for a dog trainer by them. Or better yet, they're not even looking for a dog trainer. They're trying to find out why their dog barks when they leave the house because their neighbor complains. Now, they don't know that they need a dog trainer. They don't know that they have a dog training issue. But if you can understand that the way people buy has changed and people on word of mouth like they used to for business. So you think you get all of your business from referrals, but 88% of the people that search that get a referral will search before they even call you. So if you don't have a website or you don't have reviews or you can't be found online, that word of mouth referral may not go as far as it used to. So you're focused so many times on just like operating my business, keeping my customers happy, getting more clients in the door and more sales. And the website is kind of this thing that it's online and you're like, yeah, I know I need to do it. I just don't have time. And you have to make the time because it's not optional.
And what about providing free articles and resources and helpful information on websites. Is that something that you promote?
So here's the thing that's changed. We see on average 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day. That was what we would see 30 years ago in a month. So our attention span for the average person is 3 to 5 seconds. So if you have content and you're posting something and it's this great article and it doesn't capture them in 3 to 5 seconds, it could be the best article in the world, but whatever they read, the first headline, the first couple sentences, they're like, I don't really want to read this, or no, this isn't answering my question. So people will create content because they read something that says, I need to blog every week. Google cares about consistency. And that's changed. It's no longer about content that's consistent. You can find information anywhere. You don't have to be smart to run a business. You can press a button on your phone and ask who's the 22nd president and get the answer. So if you are giving me information, is there a way that you can not just give me content, not give me information, but can you give me insight? Can you save me time by answering a question so well that I want to read more, that I want to learn more, that I want to call you because your content is that good? So it's insight now. It's not information, it's content. It's how can you give me the insight, save me the time. Have you ever looked for something, Tim, and you started a search, and 3 hours later, you don't even remember what you started to look for?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because you get distracted, because you have ads in your face, because you have other articles that are somewhat related, and you go down this complete different path, and you're like, what did I start to look for? What was I even looking for?
Right.
Our attention is the hardest thing to capture now.
So are you saying that they need like attention-grabbing headlines and maybe bold bullet points instead of long necessary articles? Or maybe they could have those big articles but have it behind the headlines, the bullet points, or maybe even short videos? I don't know.
It depends. So if I'm selling to baby boomers like to read. They're not going to watch a video. If I'm selling to millennials don't like to read. They would rather see a video. So it depends on who you're selling to and who you're trying to target, of what that content is and what insight you can give them. So if I go back to the classic dog training example, and if I'm searching for why does my dog bark when I leave, and the insight I give that person back is, oh, well, your dog might be a puppy, and he might be suffering from separation anxiety. It's something that a lot of people that baby puppies find out about after they've babied the puppy too much. And you leave the house and it's upset, and it goes through anxiety. If there's other things that you're having problems with, then you can read these other tips for new dog owners. So it's giving them the content in the medium that they want it in, and it doesn't matter if it's an email. If it's a headline, it has to be capturing and compelling enough that they want to read and they want to continue. Same thing with the video intro. Same thing with the podcast intro. You've got this short window of 5 seconds, and they've decided if they're leaving or staying.
Yeah, most people listen to my podcast intro and they leave.
That's not true.
You're like, this is a
Maybe
really
that's what
big
you
show.
feel like.
No, so what you're saying basically, know your customers and know how they consume information, and that will be extremely helpful. And that makes sense because, you're thinking, well, I like to read articles, so everybody else likes to read articles, I assume, but yet your customer base may be millennials and they like video. So that is very, very powerful information. And, how did you get started in all of this? Is being an entrepreneur and understanding business and marketing, has this always been in your blood, or is this something new that came later in life?
No, so I've always been in technology. And then I started I was doing help desk and software and selling to companies, and then I started doing website design about 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, you could have a website and it could be awful, and you would get traffic. and you would get people there, and you're like, oh, this is great. I have a website, and I get leads and customers and revenue. And about 7 or 8 years ago, things started to shift because more people were learning WordPress. More people were getting free websites when they got a domain on GoDaddy. And all of a sudden, your website wasn't enough. So I started to really get into the psychology and conversions and why people buy, or why do they click? Why do they not click? Why are they leaving in 10 seconds? And I started to focus on what's called conversion optimization. So it's making the page do better. It's making that copy or that email get open more. It's making people do whatever the call to action or the thing I'm asking them to do that more. And over the last several years, that's not enough. So you can get the traffic to the website. You can get them to give you your email, but now they're not buying because our emails are overwhelmed with newsletters and things that we really want to read, and we have the best intention and we want to learn, but we're busy. So the last couple of years, I've been focusing on how can we convert people into revenue, into dollars. Everything we do, we don't have to guess at. We don't have to make the same assumptions in business that we had to make 20 years ago. We can validate it with people, with feedback, with surveys, watching where they click on the page, watching which pages they go to when they get there. So all of these things that we used to assume, Tim, we don't have to assume anymore. We can just ask or see it.
And so there's no reason for us not to be doing that because, we have access to that data, and that data is extremely valuable.
Absolutely. It changes the way you sell.
Mm-hmm. Now, was there a book or a resource or something along the way as you were coming through and learning all of this that was very helpful? Was there someone out there that you kind of looked up to in this whole market?
So there's a couple of different ones. I read a lot. I love books. I love Audible. I love podcasts. There's a couple of books that are really good. One is by an author named Chet Holmes. So it's C-H-E-T, and his last name is like Sherlock Holmes. And it's called The Ultimate Sales Blueprint. And that really helps you get laser focused and very clear on what it is you do and your value above your competitors, even if you're in a commoditized market. Because it's one of the exercises he has you go through is you have a stadium of 100 people. What can you say, one line, that half of the people don't stand up and leave? And it's hard to get what you do down into one sentence that people wouldn't voluntarily leave. How can you not eliminate women? How can you not say you're only for moms? How can you? It's hard to do this, especially for our own businesses or our own services that we provide. The other thing he talks about is only 3% are buying at any time. 3% are buying everything. 3% are looking for a car. 3% are looking for a washer and dryer. 3% are looking for a babysitter. The other 97%, the burden falls on us to get them to think they need it, to be interested in it, and to be willing to buy it.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, Chet Holmes, I wasn't familiar with him until I had Mitch Russo on the show, episode 71 out there for all of you.
Yeah.
He was business partners with Chet Holmes and very close with him and Tony Robbins and also Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington. And he talked about Chet Holmes, and that was kind of the first time I really knew anything about Chet. And so, when you mentioned him, it kind of, I'm like, oh yeah, Chet. He was awesome. Really just an amazing guy, and Mitch was there, I guess, when he had passed away, and was really kind of touched by that. And he shares his story on 71. So I just heard so much amazing stuff, and he really understood all of that. And so as you're throwing that out there, I'm like, yes, he was the man when it comes to that. Now,
another one that's good for people that trade time for dollars. So that's attorneys, anybody really that's in the service-based industry. where you're relying heavily on your time and your knowledge and your expertise. There's a great book by John Warlow, and that book is called The Automatic Customer. And he also wrote the book Built to Sell, which is a good book to read if you are creating a business that your end game is to sell that business. But the automatic customer helps people put the recurring revenue model, subscription model into perspective, even if they trade time for dollars, which is really important if you are building your company to sell, because you're building a subscription or a revenue model that's recurring, whether it's annual or monthly, and that increases your valuation tremendously if you want to sell your company.
Absolutely. Well, those are great resources. Thank you very much. And now let's move into the dig round. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Just kind of give me the answer that comes to your mind. What keeps you motivated, Bethany?
The thing that keeps me motivated is giving back at a higher level than anybody's ever given back before, and setting that example for my kids.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, your customers are first, and that's how you really need to be in business. It's not about the money first, but it's about, taking care of those around you.
Yeah.
And that is great. Now, who do you look up to as a business leader?
I love Sheryl Sandberg, and maybe because she is a woman of power and influence at a company that changes the world. I love everything that she does.
And for the listeners out there who do not know Sheryl Sandberg, which company is she associated with?
She is the COO of Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would recommend people to really look her up, and she's doing amazing stuff. And, if you have to choose one, Bethany, street smarts or book smarts, you've been giving me some great resources in books, but you have to choose one that you're going to carry with you. Is it the street or is it the book?
I had this conversation with my husband that I want my kids to have a great life, but I also want them to have street smarts, because I have to go with street smarts. I think it teaches you survival. It teaches you perseverance. It teaches you that giving up is not an option. And I don't know if you learn that in books.
Okay, so we're going to burn Chet's book, John Warlow's books. Everybody throw them in your fireplace.
You can learn a ton in books, but you made me pick one.
It was a forced choice. There's no easy answer.
I know.
No, you're absolutely right. There's many things you just, I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, and there's a lot of things that I learned in theory, but it's very different than when you're out in the world working with people. Something you use it kind of as a framework, but yet you're always adjusting it, and you're always learning on the go. And people who do not make it, they don't make it because they don't have the street smart. If they stick to that theory, they just stick to the book and they operate. You need that foundation and structure, but yet you have to be able to kind of veer off left and right at times to make it all work. So what you said makes a lot of sense. Now, since you've been doing this and going out there and spreading the message and all of your information, I'm sure there was a time when you were mentally just drained and feeling like you couldn't go on. Can you share a moment like that, and how did you get through it?
So, I think that moment for me was my mom had just passed away. My mom adopted me when she was in her 40s and got sick when I was in high school. And I left high school and finished high school and went straight to a job, because I was her caregiver by the time I had graduated high school. And so I was very close to my mom. She lived long enough to see my kids be born, and that kind of kept her going. But there was this moment that she had passed, and she was my rock, and I'm everybody else's rock. And I felt like I lost the one person that got me more than anyone. And at the time, I also had a business that I learned really quickly relied on me 100%. So where I had people that I thought could operate without me, I built the business up to always need me. And, it was this moment that I realized, had this not happened and had I not understood operate business like this, I can't always rely on deal to deal to deal to sustain, then I wouldn't have gone down the path of figuring out how to work myself out of my job. And I had to have that moment that everything was down and I felt like everything was gone in order to come back up and figure out a way to not feel like that again.
Wow. Well, I mean, it sounds like your mom was such a special person, was your foundation. And, I want to ask you a personal question, aside from business, but, when you lost your mom, does time heal?
Time, I think it doesn't necessarily heal. We just cope differently, and we get caught back up in life. So it's when death happens and grieving, you lose someone or something tragic happens, it helps you put things in perspective. Because all these things that stress you out or ruin your day, all of a sudden really don't matter as much. Because they don't. We make them matter. But I think when she first passed away, I was so caught up in the grief and the loss and the loss and the loss that I wasn't holding on to the love, or I wasn't holding on to the amount of time that she lived and the things that she got to see and the things that she got to do in her life. I mean, when she was born, slavery was still around and segregation and all these things that I'm a mixed race child, which was considered unadoptable by all adoption agencies. And she took a gamble taking a baby that was not white into her life and fighting for a child that wasn't even hers. And she did it like it was the right thing to do, and everybody else was crazy. And I'm grateful for that. But it's so hard to just heal, and I don't think we should heal. I think we should get better and cope better, but I think we have to hold on to that love and that loss and that pain. Not to the point that it takes your life over, but enough that you don't lose perspective.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes total sense. And, it sounds like your mom was just a fantastic person. And the reason I'd asked that, I lost my dad. It'll be 5 years, October 27th of this year. So, I just, I heard before, he'd passed away, time heals everything. But when I lost him, kind of like your mom was for you, he was my rock. He was my foundation. And I really struggled for so many years. And, and I still struggle, but I've kind of, like you said, focus on, on the good and focus on life instead of the loss. And, and I use that every day as fuel to go forward, and not necessarily to hold me back. And so, time doesn't necessarily heal, but there's a different way that you can kind of make sense of the whole thing. And I kind of stayed locked in lost for so many years after that it was almost paralyzing. It was hard to do anything, to stay focused and to stay motivated and to feel happy. So, but it makes total sense what you said. And sorry to get off track, but it just,
no, it's fine.
It's such a, a really, unless, you lost someone that's really, really close to you, it's hard, to really kind of understand that. And even if you have a similar loss, it's not the same. And, and so, but
it's oh, no, go ahead. It's incredibly painful. And I think that's probably what paralyzed both of us was just the pain. But what I realized is I have 2 kids, and one of the things, she wanted to be remembered, and she did not want to be forgotten, and she wants the kids to know who she is. So I really celebrate her life, and sometimes my daughter will do something, and I become my mom. Because I was a tomboy, and my mom would remind me over and over again, that's not very ladylike. And I was like, that's no fun. Being a lady is not fun at all. But I'm doing the same things with my daughter because I'm kind of hearing my mom's voice of what she would do with me, and I try to talk about her and let them know stories about how she parented me and things that she would do, because it's important that they know her too. Yeah. And I think that's probably the same thing with your dad. Yeah. You want your kids to know your dad.
Yep, absolutely. I make sure. Yeah, he wasn't around. He was born after my dad passed away, but I make sure I have lots of pictures, and and I talk about my father, and make sure that he knows he can pick out my dad in a photo. So. Just like you keep your mom alive with your children. That's fantastic. And thank you for sharing that. Now let's kind of move on a little bit. What has been one of the most fulfilling moments on your entrepreneurial journey?
I didn't realize I've always worked in the capacity of helping other clients, and I always have such confidence when it comes to them. But you don't really realize it until you go out on your own, how easy it is to sabotage yourself and how easy it is to fail and have that failure be so massive and so profound that you're like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. So I think when I started to accept that failure is a part of business and this is supposed to be what happens on my journey, gosh, things got so much easier. Because I took the pressure off, and I expect that not everything I do is going to work, and that certain things are going to resonate, and certain things aren't, and that's okay. At least I know what doesn't work, and I don't repeat that over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's powerful. Life is a journey, a learning journey. Business and life in general, and it sounds like you gave yourself a break. And that is the reality of it. People make mistakes, and perfectionism is a killer. I mean, you will just be paralyzed if you try to be so perfect, and every time something goes wrong, it will just throw a real kink in your day, and you can't operate that. You have to be able to just take it, look at it, what happened, how do I make adjustments, and go on. And for you to give yourself a break and just maybe even laugh it off at times and say, well, there it goes. That's okay. That's just supposed to happen. Right. That's part of life, part of the learning curve.
Yeah, it is. Well, I do the same thing with my kids because they come home, and depending on the schools, sometimes the schools really don't teach you it's okay to fail. Mm-hmm. You think you have to pass everything and you have to succeed. And that comes back to your street smarts versus book smarts. Can you adapt? Can you fail? Can you get kicked down and stand back up? Or do you go by what the book says, and if you fall, you can't get back up?
Wow. I couldn't said it any better than that, Bethany. That is fantastic. And I think that's a wonderful place. We're at the end. We've run out of time, but before we go, tell the listeners where they can find you online and any social media sites that you're currently on.
Sure. You can find me at our website, which is Marley, like Bob Marley, Marley, Nonami, Nonami, and marleynonami.com. And if you go on there, we have a webinar. It's actually a masterclass that we teach business owners how to do at least one or two things for your SEO, which is how you get found online. And it comes with a workbook. It is an action book, and you will go through it. And maybe you can't do everything, but at least you do one thing that helps your online presence so you look like you can compete with the big boys.
Wonderful. So that's Marley Nonami, MarleyN as in Nancy, ON as in Nancy, AM as Mary, I.com. And she has the webinar masterclass for SEO. Head on over there right now. Well, thank you very much, Bethany. It's been a pleasure, and I hope no more hurricanes come your way.
Oh, me either. Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a blast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.